What is up, everybody, man? Welcome into the Bluebloods, man. Haven't had a live show, I think, in over a week now, man. It's been a busy week down here in Mobile as the Senior Bowl has just wrapped up. Had practices from Tuesday to Thursday. Friday night was kind of an off night, for the players with the parade. I think they had a Nelly concert downtown, and then of course Saturday we were at South Alabama Stadium pretty much for the whole day for the Senior Bowl. It was an insane week. Listen, if you're looking for any content, there's a playlist and there's a page on the channel for all the Senior Bowl content on the website. There's pictures from practice, and man, I did my best to try to really highlight a lot of the FCS guys that were down here in Mobile, and a lot of them balled out, man. And that's why I really wanted to do this live show tonight because and those guys need the spotlight from Aubrey Miller, leading the American team in tackles, if I'm not mistaken, to Isaiah Land getting a huge sack, from Cody Mauch from North Dakota State being the probably one of the best offensive linemen in attendance down in Mobile. McClendon Curtis bouncing back from a tough early week to end off on a really high note. Even Andreas Lovas coming in and Marte Mapu getting a late invite and being here and going back to back in all-star games. I'm not going to do the Shrine Bowl tonight. I was thinking about doing it, but I'm getting some information, some film that I don't have access to because I wasn't at that event. I really want to do my due diligence and looking at how some of those FCS prospects did. And if I'm not mistaken, there were a little over double the amount of FCS prospects at the Shrine Bowl compared to the Senior Bowl. So there's a lot of people that I want to make sure I get a good look at, get a good evaluation on how scouts and people who were in attendance thought they did. We're going to, of course, go and talk Raymond Woodie taking over at Bethune-Cookman. For what I'm told, it's all but a done deal. Fingers crossed, but I know a lot of people want to talk about it. I think the board still has to ratify the hiring from what I'm hearing, but hopefully they get that done, and we don't have another situation that turns into kind of what we had with the whole Ed Reed thing. And then I also want to talk a little bit of recruiting. So I'm still trying to catch up on just full signing day classes before I do a full ranking. But I did want to pick out some of my top and my personal favorite commitments and signees from across the FCS. I think, about 10 of those guys picked out. And then later this week, I'll probably do a live stream probably Wednesday night where I really break down a lot of the classes that I really like, some of the top classes across the FCS, really kind of be HBCU center to kind of talk about the big debate on who had the best class across the divisions and the conference, and what I liked and what I thought each class could have done better. But overall, man, I was really happy. I know I talked on She Loves D and Doc Holliday's show about just how, if you've really been keeping up with recruiting in terms of FCS, HBCU sphere, the level of recruiting, man, is at like an all-time high. And when you look at some of these commitments and signees, you see that these guys are players that have been committed, that have been highly recruited by Power Five programs, Group of Five programs, FBS programs from across the country. It's just that a lot of those programs now, man, are filling their needs through the transfer portal. And a lot of these really great high school athletes, these potentially, all American, all conference level players are really falling through the cracks, and they're winding up at your FCS programs, and they're probably lined up to be the next stars across the FCS. And so I think there's a lot of great athletes that I think got a little bit overlooked, to be honest with you, man. But listen, call lines are already open, 701-779-9585 on the screen in front of you and on the ticker below. But let's get into Senior Bowl takeaways. These are all the FCS guys that were down in Mobile, Alabama this week for the Senior Bowl. You had Cody Mauch from North Dakota State on the offensive line, Aubrey Miller Jr. from Jackson State with the linebackers, Marte Mapu, who is a linebacker slash defensive back from Sacramento State, Andreas Sovas from Princeton at wide receiver, Isaiah Land at edge slash linebacker, McClendon Curtis from Chattanooga offensive line, and then Robert Solderum, who is VMI long snapper, who had a really good week. And, we'll kind of get into that, but it's kind of hard to evaluate long snappers because they didn't have really live special teams reps per se, just due to injury. But throughout the week, he performed really well. But with we'll start with Cody Mauch, who was probably, man, I'll have to say these are kind of in order for the most part, But man, Cody Malk had probably the best week of any FCS prospect at any All-Star game, I would have to imagine. And his versatility was unbelievable. So Cody Malk comes in, plays, he plays tackle at North Dakota State. His arms don't measure as long as scouts would like him to. But when you play offensive tackle in the league, your arms have to be a certain length. And they don't feel like he has like a long enough frame to play tackle, so they moved him inside. Throughout the week, he played left tackle, left guard, center, and right guard throughout the week. So he played 4 of the 5 positions and held his own in all of them. He went through some growing pains at center, but that's man, it's so hard. I don't think people understand if you've never played center to snap the football, get your head up, and get your base set under you and understand how to handle a defensive tackle. And he's trying to learn how to play center against guys who are going to be drafted in the NFL. But in my opinion, I think left guard will be his position in the league. He probably, I would say, won somewhere above 90% of his one-on-ones this week. And throughout scrimmages and everything, he was consistently getting up to the second level, does a great job pulling, has the athleticism to do so, and killed the interview process, man. He was one of, I would say, him, Aubrey, Kenny McIntosh from Georgia. I would say those 3 guys, they were so personable and so the media loved them, and every chance they got to talk to one of those 3 guys, they absolutely took a chance to, just because they were so fun to interview. And Cody Malk had a huge week, man. He was probably going to be a second round pick regardless, but now he's getting a lot of talk of a potential late first round, really, really early second round, kind of like where Christian Watson was drafted last year. But I would imagine Cody Malk is easily, undoubtedly going to be the first FCS prospect you see off the board. He had an A+ week this week down here in Mobile, and he's just a mauler, man. He is just an absolute mauler. And I was talking to, some scouts and some, parents of other players who couldn't be down here, just about what they saw. And, I had one parent tell me that's like, man, if I was creating an offensive lineman, Cody Mock is who I would create. That Listen, roll the jersey up, let the beer belly hang out, man. Give me the long hair, like the mullet. I don't care about anything. I don't care what I look like. I'm just gonna go out there and maul people. He has the offensive lineman mindset, man. And I'm very, very high on his NFL potential. Now, Aubrey Miller had easily probably the second best week of anybody down in Mobile in terms of FCS prospects. Aubrey Miller, a lot of people were questioning his coverage. I released an article the night before the first practice, and I talked about it on Doc Holliday's show. His coverage grade in 2021 was about a 59 or so, according to Pro Football Focus, which is not very good. This year, he had, I believe, 6 more pass breakups than he had in 2021, and his coverage grade jumped to like a 90, which is considered elite on Pro Football Focus's grading scale. Aubrey has, I think, developed leaps and bounds in terms of what he can do in terms of a coverage linebacker. And then when he got an opportunity in Mobile this week, his ability to come downhill, fit the hole, be explosive, bring his body weight behind his hits. And also, I think this is a very underrated aspect of his game, is I don't think people give him enough credit for his football IQ. If you're going to play Mike at the next level, you are going to have to be smart. You're going to have to know what's going on in the backfield, where you need to be. You need to know where pretty much everyone's going to be. The Mike is the quarterback of the defense, and Aubrey all week really emerged as the leader of the American team defense when he was on the field. He was getting other players together. He was pointing out different coverage calls, different, listen, this guy's here, you need to be here. And I mean, he was really directing the American team defense. And so I think that was something that, if you can emerge as a leader at an all-star game where everyone are quote unquote alphas, and everyone's the best of the best at their position and from their school, if you emerge a leader in that environment, I think that speaks volumes about what type of leader and what type of person you're going to be in the locker room, for whatever team ends up drafting him. And again, just like I talked about Malk, I think he probably killed the interview process. And with these events, what happens in the game is great, but it's that means probably that means significantly less than what happens during practice. So it's 3 practices and the interview sessions that occur after practice, back at the hotel, back at the Riverview, and all that kind of stuff. The stuff that happens behind the scenes weighs so much more than what you guys, or what myself or you guys see happen on NFL Network on Saturday. And Aubrey, I think, passed with flying colors this week, and I think he also had an A+ week in terms of his draft stock. He early in the week, he went through some growing pains with covers, but man, by the end of the week, he looked like a different guy. And I think everyone saw when the lights come on, you can't teach game speed. And that's something Aubrey Miller has. When the lights come on and it's time to go in terms of the game, you can count that 45 is going to be ready. And I loved his performance, man. He brought the boom on the first play of the game and led the American team in tackles, and that's got to say something because he's one of those players that you always want to have on the field. So big shout out to Aubrey Miller for a huge week that he had. Now, Marte Mapu from Sacramento State, he did not play in the actual game because he just came from another All-Star game. So him and his agent, from what I was told, did not want him to play two games in back-to-back weeks, which I understand because Sacramento State also had a deep playoff run. But he had a solid week too, man. And this is a kid who's 6'3", 220, played nickel back at Sacramento State, and he was in the same group with Aubrey Miller in terms of Mike linebackers. And his ability with his speed and his versatility to fit multiple different positions, man, I think really is going to make Marte an interesting prospect. He said he was getting a lot of interest from teams, but I really do think his ability to play nickel, deep safety, Mike linebacker, off the ball linebacker, and in his pass rush, I would say reps this week, man. He was dominating running backs because they don't know how to handle his size and his speed and his athleticism. So I think Marte is a great prospect from the FCS, and I think he's going to be a guy you really got to look out for. Um, in terms of draft stock, I guess I'll add that in. Malk, like I said, he's probably late first round, early second round, definitely improved. For Aubrey, coming into the week, I was thinking probably seventh-ish round for his draft stock, but I think now a late day 2 pick would not surprise me, somewhere around the late fourth round, and if not, probably early day 3, because I saw a few sites that said that he probably is about a fifth round guy, but I really do think some of his intangibles can slide him into the late fourth round, late day 2 area. But I would say somewhere around the fourth, fifth round is probably where you're going to see Aubrey Miller's name called. For Marte, probably about the same, just because as much as his versatility does help him, some teams don't like that. Some teams they don't want to do the work to try to figure out where you fit. And so I think Marte will probably be a late day 2 guy, probably early day 3 guy, just because there's going to be some teams who don't want to touch him because they call him a tweener, and there's going to be other teams that are probably going to take him a little bit earlier just because of all the different needs that he can fit. In terms of Andre, great week of practice, but in the game, he every time he was out there, man, it's like he wasn't really getting targeted. They tried to do like a weird, like back QB pass with him, and he lost a yard on that because it wasn't open. The defense did a great job reading it. A quarterback almost throws an interception in the end zone, target him. He really didn't get a lot of looks in the game, but throughout practice, man, he had a hell of a week in terms of catching the football, route running, showing off his speed. This is a guy who holds the 60-meter record for the NCAA in terms of speed, and he's 6'3 plus. He has the size, he has the athleticism you want. He does a good job catching the football, but I think they want to see more production in terms of game production because again, in the Senior Bowl, man, he really didn't get that, and he didn't put up flashy stats over at Princeton. So Andre, I could see being somewhere around a day 2 pick just based off potential. I think he's going to be a Christian Watson like prospect where it's probably going to take him a little bit of time. And him being a 2-sport athlete, I still think he has a little bit to learn in terms of wide receiver moving forward. But he had a solid week. Now Isaiah Land is probably the prospect I got to spend the most time on because he did so many things this week. So he started the week out with the edge rushers. Then he moved to Mike. Then he moved back to edge rusher. Then he played Mike in the game. He practiced at so many different positions because he at the beginning of the week, he did a good job in terms of pass rushing. Like as long as like I said yesterday on Doc's show, as long as the offensive tackle did not get him locked in and get their hands in his chest, Isaiah was winning one-on-ones. But the issue is if one of these big offensive tackle grab him and actually get a hold of him, it it's tough for him to overcome that just because of his size. He came in at 226 according to the Monday weigh-ins, and he was about 6'3" and a half, I believe. And so that's going to be something I'm going to be interested to see how much weight he can put on moving forward as he goes through the draft process. What does he show up at the combine at? That'll be interesting. If he can 226, man, if he can get to the combine at like 235-ish, that would be a good sign at him putting on solid weight. But just being next to him, getting to talk to him, I will say he's 226. But I'm telling you, man, it is 226 of pure muscle, man. The kid is ripped. He's solid. There's not an ounce of body fat on him. So he has, I would call it productive weight, even though he's still a little bit undersized. I just want to see what he weighs in at the combine. But I will say because there's two types of one-on-ones. If you ever played offensive line or defensive line, you'll understand what I'm saying. You have the pass rush drills where it's one-on-one, and as a defensive lineman, you have to get upfield, touch the coach, touch the dummy, whatever they have back there to simulate a quarterback. Then there's another drill with one-on-ones where if you're a defensive end, you want to extend your arm, set the edge, and not let the offensive tackle move you off your spot. If you're a defensive tackle, you want to extend, get probably about a yard or two into the backfield and stop. You don't want to get too far out there because then they can hit you with a counter, cutback lanes open up. So it's two different fundamental drills, but they're still one-on-one. And Isaiah Land did a really good job day one in that run stopping drill. He fully extended on the Georgia offensive tackle. I believe his last name was McClendon or something like that. Fully extended his arm. And I mean, the Georgia kid could not move him. So he held his own in terms of strength wise. And then when they moved him to Mike, I will say this, I'm always honest. There was some growing pains for Isaiah. I know I talked to Scotty. I talked to some other people who were calling me asking about the HBCU prospects. The first day at Mike linebacker, what Isaiah really, I won't say he struggled with it. He just looked uncomfortable in terms of flipping his hips in the open field. If you ever played linebacker or defensive back, you're backpedaling. They do the ball whatever different direction. You got to flip your hips, flip your hips, flip your hips, and then you come forward and they throw the football at you. He looked uncomfortable in that drill. I wouldn't say he necessarily struggled, but he just looked a little stiff, and I think that's just figuring out what it needs to feel like, what you need to do, and just getting his body used to doing that in a game because he didn't really drop in coverage. He never had to flip his hips, keep his eye on the football, anything like that's not what he did for years at Florida A&M. So it was a little bit of an adjustment. He did solid in terms of one-on-ones. I think he has to take better angles in the open field sometimes. If you saw in the highlight tape that I posted on YouTube, he took a really bad angle for Eric Gray. He hit him with the stutter step. He overran him, and he cut back inside and scored a touchdown. But for the most part, man, Isaiah Land did a solid job for his first time ever playing inside at the Mike position. But I really do think looking at his projection to the next level, he'll be a project at the Mike, which means whatever teams drafts him, he'll have to gain experience, gain, some sort of understanding on reads and what you need to do, what you expect assignment wise from a Mike linebacker. But the good part about Isaiah is one, he played on special teams in practice this week. Special teams are so important in terms of getting you on a roster. And the other thing that he did really, really well is he has a specialty that you can utilize as he comes along as a Mike linebacker. There's always a need for a bona fide pass rusher on when you get that rush team in there and you start moving those true three techs, true five techs defensive ends inside, and you got to have a speed guy on the outside. That is where Land is going to thrive, and I really do think that's going to increase his value come the NFL draft. I see the comments, man. Isaiah Land is going to get drafted. I'm just telling you, based strictly off potential, based strictly off of just listen, pass rushers, there's a premium on pass rushers in the league. And the fact that Isaiah Land, even when he's a little bit undersized, still finds a way to produce when he has the disadvantage is going to get him drafted. He had a great week. Let's see what he looks like at the combine. I'm assuming he's probably going to go off with the linebackers. I want to see if he looks more comfortable in the open field, but he did a solid job in 7-on-7 in coverage. He did a great job picking up the running back outside the backfield, did a great job when they were running some zone coverage in terms of understanding where he needs to be, understanding passing off guys to the next zone and everything like that. Isaiah Land is a work in progress there, but I'm telling you, because of his ability to be a pass rusher and be effective at that, he's going to find his way on a roster in the NFL, and he's going to hear his name called when this NFL draft rolls around. And then finally, man, McClendon Curtis from Chattanooga, offensive lineman. He even admitted, if you watch the interview on the channel, he said he had a tough day one. He did. He This is a guy who played a lot of guard. They were moving him around similar to Mock and similar to a lot of offensive linemen down in Mobile. He really struggled with hand placement early. So if you ever played offensive line, when you come off the football, it's really a battle for hand position at first, and he was consistently losing that hand position battle, and he was getting beat because of that. If you face a good defensive end, defensive tackle, and you lose the hand position battle, you're getting beat 9 times out of 10, unless you just find a way to overpower them or they make a misstep with their feet or they're not setting their base or etc. McClendon struggled with that day one, but he really bounced back day two and three and was actually named one of the standouts on day three. And you saw in the game, him and Cody Mock on that first offensive line for the national team, they were averaging like 9 yards per carry for the almost the entire first half. Evan Hull had a huge game for Northwestern, but mainly because McClendon Curtis, Cody Mock, and some of those guys were able to work to the second level and make some room. Now, McClendon has a body more suited to play tackle, but I think his comfort level is a little bit better at guard just because he started 30 plus games at Chattanooga at the guard spot. I still think he's probably a day three pick, possibly a later day three pick, but I do think he can be developed into something really special, man. He has heavy, heavy hands. He has the strength. He has the size. He just has to get a little bit quicker with his hands, and he really has to figure out where he wants to play at the next level. Is it inside at guard where he has all this experience that he is very comfortable, or does he want to make the move to tackle where he started 7 games this year at left tackle due to injuries for the Mocs? McClendon Curtis, solid week, man, but I'm really, really hoping that we even see further development as we get through this pre-draft process. And then finally, Robert Solderholm, long snapper. He talked about, it was more he just had to develop his technique getting off the football. So after you snap, you have to do certain things in terms of blocking assignments, lane management, things like that. He said he did all that really well. And, I with special teams not being super live at times, I don't know if Robert got to show his whole skill set, but from what I was told from a few scouts I asked in terms of special teams, he had a solid week. And this is a guy 3 straight years without a block punt, without an errant snap, three-time FCS All-American. I don't know what more you can ask for a long snapper. His times were great in terms of getting the ball to the punter and or the holder for field goals. Robert had a solid week, man, and I think I don't know if long snappers have a really I don't know if that's a position that you're really going to draft, but it's someone that you're going to want to have on your roster. Let me say that because as Weber State, ask any team that's had some bad snaps costing them games, you're going to want a good long snapper. So he'll find his way on a roster. I just don't know if a team's going to use a pick to draft a long snapper. I'm just to be honest with you. I don't know. Maybe you guys could tell me in the chat. Has anyone ever drafted like is there has there ever been a long snapper drafted? I'll just ask you guys. I don't think there has been based on my knowledge. But moving on here, Raymond Woodie, supposedly, reportedly, the new head coach at Bethune-Cookman. And, you know, I just want to say it. I told you guys it was coming. I was told that Raymond Woodie was the number one candidate. It looks like they finally pulled the trigger. He put a tweet out, deleted it. From what I was told, it was the board hasn't necessarily approved it, like fully approved it yet, which is why he ended up deleting his tweet. But it's all but pretty much set in stone for the most part. But we will see. We'll say this. We'll come back and readdress it if we'll readdress it if Bethune Cookman finds a way not to approve this. I don't see why they wouldn't approve it because if they don't approve Raymond Woodie, I I would, 1, wanna know what they didn't approve, and then 2, where do you go from there? Like, if you can't hire Raymond Woodie, who can you hire at this point? Like, I don't know what would be the next move for Bethune-Cookman. But, looking at Raymond Woodie, man, has extensive high school coaching experience in the state of Florida. Was a defensive started out his career as the defensive coordinator over at Bayshore High School in Florida in 1996. Was the head coach there from 97 to 2006, and then coached 3 years at Palmetto High School as the head coach before starting his collegiate career. Was at Western Kentucky as a defensive end linebacker coach from 2010-2012. Went to South Florida as the D coordinator, linebackers coach for from 2013 to 2016. Went to Oregon for a year in 2017. Was the Florida State linebacker coach for 2 years, and then went to Florida Atlantic as the outside linebacker coach, recruiting coordinator for 2 seasons before Woodley Taggart was let go. And I will say this: I know my guy Scotty and some other people were really upset at this hire, but it's just I, at this point, at what did I don't know what people wanted. I don't know. Like, yes, every situation was upsetting, but like there was no way they were going to hire Ed Reed, and I think he knew it. Everyone involved in the situation knew it. Kevin Sumlin was sticking with the USFL, XFL, whatever he's coaching in now. It's just like who I don't know who people were expecting. I think out of the supposed candidates, I don't think this is like the worst move for Bethune-Cookman. Like, worst case, I mean, let's just take it as extremely worst case. He doesn't win in the first, what, 2, 3 seasons you give him, and you move on and you reset, and hopefully you fix some of the issues that are keeping people from taking that job. Maybe make it a more attractive job somehow. But when you look at something Raymond Woodie does really, really well, is, man, he can recruit. That's something you cannot take from him. When he was at Western Kentucky, he was the Sun Belt Recruiter of the Year by both Fox Sports and Scout.com in 2012. He was voted the AAC's top recruiter by Rivals in 2014 at South Florida, and he was the primary recruiter. So while he was there, South Florida had 10 all-conference selections in the AAC. He was the primary recruiter for 9 of those players. An eye for talent, and he does a great job at landing them. And when he was at Oregon, he was the number 1 recruiter in the Pac-12, top 15 in the entire country his 1 year at Oregon. And then when he was at Florida State as a linebacker coach, he was the number 2 recruiter in the ACC by 247 Sports his first year. And this is something, I mean, I understand he's got to go through trying to sell Bethune-Cookman to recruits. I get that. But every single spot he's been an elite recruiter, and I don't see how that changes. He might not be recruiting on, a P5 level or anything like that, but something has to be said about his ability to create relationships and find a way to close the deal and get those kids to sign. And you see, even by his time at South Florida, those kids turn out to be pretty good. And so you got to give them. Yeah, I would say this: if I'm a Bethune-Cookman fan, if I'm a SWAC fan, let's see how year 1 goes. He gets hired late. He steps into an absolute dumpster fire of a situation in terms of coming off of Ed Reed, half the team. Half the team doesn't even want him there. Let's be honest. I mean, the team was protesting to have Ed Reed back. And so if he can do a solid job at not, going 0-12, like if they win 1 or 2 games this year, man, you got to look at it as like, okay, what do we really expect? Give them a year to get a recruiting class in, a full recruiting class. Let's see what he does when the second transfer portal window opens, I believe in late March. Let's see what kind of roster he can put together, and let's see what his staff looks like when he finally gets to step into the job. I'll say that, man. You got to keep, because listen, I'll be honest, there was a lot of skepticism on whether Eddie Robinson Jr. was going to be able to succeed. And he did pretty damn well. He finished 3rd in the division, was a play away from beating FAMU, and competed better than a majority of the SWAC against Jackson State. So it's just, let's just I think a wait and see approach is there. I mean, I don't know. Maybe someone can call and tell me. I mean, was there a realistically better situation or better potential coaching candidate that everyone would have been more happy with? I gave you guys the short list. I gave you guys the short list, and everyone was saying that out of those potential coaches, that Raymond Woodie was probably the best option out of those. Everyone understood that Kevin Sumlin was an extreme long shot, and at this point, it's just like I really do think people have to take a step back and say, okay, you get a guy who can recruit the state of Florida, has strong ties to the high school level, has strong ties to the surrounding areas that Bethune-Cookman needs to recruit well. He's an alum. He understands what he's stepping back into. Man, I think there could have been a lot worse hire made. Yes, he's not the flashy hire, the big name hire, but man, it's someone who can hopefully offer, some sort of stability moving forward. So I would just say wait and see. I agree. I don't think it's a big splash hire, but I don't think it's as dire as from what I've been hearing. I don't know if it's that bad of a hire. I really don't. I don't think it's a end of the world hire. And like Cam said here, their current recruiting class, they did a solid job at bringing in a lot of prospects on National Signing Day. If he can just get a solid staff in and start slowly rebuilding what this roster was missing and kind of overcoming what all has hit Bethune Cookman lately, we can see. We can see. I would, and let me I want to get y'all's opinion in the chat. What was the realistic expectation for anybody who's coming in after what just happened with Ed Reed? I'm gonna be honest. I mean, is there a coach out there? Let's be realistic. I'm talking about saying, oh, if they hired Nick Saban or Dabo Sweeney or anyone unrealistic, realistic candidate wise, is there anybody that they could have hired that would have won more than 5+ games next year? Realistically, I I I don't know if there is. I really don't. I don't even know if you go get someone you win 5 games next season. I don't see it because we were talking about even with Ed Reed coming in, a lot of people didn't think they were going to win 6 games. So if we're having all this doubt about what Ed Reed can do, what X coach could do, I mean, there's no I don't understand like the vitriol behind this hire. It's just, man, who are they realistically going to hire? And I mean, do the expectations really change? Like, because I understand everyone's like, well, he's not going to come in here and win you a SWAC championship. But it's like, man, Ed Reed wasn't going to come in here and win you a SWAC championship year one. Kevin Sumlin definitely wasn't going to come in here year one and win you a SWAC championship. So I think the hire's kind of a wait and see. They did a solid job, you know, getting the class somewhat together where it's not just a complete dumpster fire of a signing class. They got some solid prospects. When I was looking at some of the film, and they landed some guys that can probably contribute year one. And I'm really, really interested, man, with his extensive connections across different different universities, different conferences, different geographical locations on the recruiting trail. Um, I I want to I really want to see if he can utilize some of those relationships to land a solid transfer class year one. Just stay like the everyone has what protect the yard, or protect the yard is Jackson State slogan for the year. Celebration Bowl or bust is kind of FAMU's. We'll get into that in just a minute. Is FAMU's slogan for the year. For Bethune Cookman, your slogan for the year or what you need to achieve should just be hashtag stabilize. That's it. Just stabilize the program because you were taking in a lot of water and in terms of like the ship for Bethune-Cookman. I mean, there were holes all over the place. People were just piling on, throwing digs, throwing accusations, and so I would just say stabilize should be the slogan for Bethune-Cookman this year, whatever it may be. And I think that would be my big take on this. But let me get to this caller here.
So,
7120. You're live.
yes. How you doing, Blue?
What's up, man?
I I was just wondering. I'd heard rumors that Bethune-Cookman's former coach, was Jenkins, was wanted to come back. Bethune didn't want him back, and if that was true, why would you want a coach back that had the success that he had? I mean, his worst record was 8-3, and
I,
I think he left to go to Alabama State. But why? And the conditions were just as bad when he was there. That's what Ed Reed reported. So why would you want somebody back who who could win under those circumstances?
if I'm not mistaken, maybe someone could correct me. I think he has some off the field things that is preventing him from coming back. If I'm not mistaken, like there was something that happened that Bethune was never going to bring him back, because I did hear the same thing, is that he had some interest, but that they didn't want him coming back into the program. But if I'm not, someone mentioned on the Ed Reed episode, or right after the Ed Reed stuff happened, someone mentioned his name, and someone said because of something that happened off the field or some relationship that he burned or bridge that he burned, um, they weren't going to bring him back. It was pretty much like when he left, he burned all the bridges, kind of like Ed Reed did, and they're never going to bring him back, even with all the success he had.
Okay, understood. All right,
Now,
thank you.
no, yeah, no problem, man. Thank you for calling in. I will say, building off that call, yeah, that's what I thought. I thought he had something with like the NCAA, or something happened where like they kind of like forced him out the back door anyway. But I will say, this is what I was worried about, and people can pull the tape. I don't remember what live stream it was on, but someone asked me about Terry Sims and the Bethune Cookman job and whether he was on the hot seat. This was before he was fired. It was like right at the end of the season. I still stand on it. And this isn't just hindsight. I said it then, and I stand on it now. They should not have fired Terry Sims this past year. And it was just, there was too many external variables that Bethune-Cookman was having to deal with in terms of the hurricanes and everything going on with the campus. It was like, why would you add a coaching search to all the issues that you already needed in offseason to address? Terry Sims was winning at one point at Bethune-Cookman, had 2 consecutive bad years. I'm with you on that. But I feel like one more year would have done zero harm, because I don't think, because now this is a little bit of hindsight on this point. This season, if you would have kept Terry Sims, I think he has a better year than whatever Bethune-Cookman is probably about to go have. That's just, I don't understand why you make that move then. You already are dealing with too many external things, and too many things in terms of fixing the campus, and your AD's coaching basketball, and all these things. It's like, why would you add another issue on top of that? And it looks like it all compounded itself into what the situation was with Bethune-Cookman. And I really don't think, when you look at how bad the situation got at one point with how every left, and with Bethune-Cookman being, I mean, there was a Twitter space, a news article, a Twitter thread every day from somebody who who had an opinion on it, and was dragging Bethune-Cookman and dragging this person and that person. It just became all messy. I don't think Raymond Woodie's the worst case coming out of that. I'll be honest. I know some people in the chat disagree, but I'll ask, if you don't think it was Raymond Woodie, we know it can't be Ed Reed. Who should it have been? I'm just taking names. Let me know the names in the chat. You can call in to 701-779-9585. Call in, or comment. Who else is it? If it weren't for Raymond Woodie, who else do you hire in this situation? Because I do not think the list of names could have been, or was very, very long, especially with the time of year when you're trying to hire someone right before National Signing Day, when a lot of people are not going to take a new job right at National Signing Day, because they don't want to put their team and their employer in a weird situation right before National Signing Day, because they spent the time building the relationships with the recruits, building connections on the recruiting trail for the next class. There was zero opportunity for that. And uh Trap, that name was thrown out from what I was told is he's going to probably take a year off. If he was going to take a job, it was probably going to be Valley due to his connections there. But I heard he's probably going to take a year off, potentially be, an assistant on the staff somewhere, be kind of, you know, someone who helps, but it's kind of behind the scenes. Like he wants to get out of the spotlight. He wants to kind of take a step back, and then he potentially could get back into coaching somewhere. So, zero chance he would have taken this job. I just don't see. I don't think that would be that would be something he would want to do. He's probably going to take a step back. Um, I said our brows. Yeah, that probably would have went over real well. See BC 2023 0-11. Yeah. Oh, wait, who? Yeah, North Carolina A&T, Chris, they landed Vincent Brown, William and Mary defensive coordinator, former Valley All-American linebacker, All-Pro linebacker for the New England Patriots. That was their head coach and hire. But man, listen, I'll say this. Final comments on this before we move to recruiting. It's okay. This was a stabilization move. They got an alum. They got someone who, at worst case, is just a bridge to your next coach for 2-3 years while everything tries to get fixed. They have to address the problems that everyone brought into the limelight. You get an alum who at least bridges you to the next stop point. And like I said, the slogan this year for Bethune-Cookman is just stabilization. Just get back afloat, get things trending in the right direction, and then we make a move in 2-3 years to get, maybe an upgrade or see how Raymond Woodie does. Hopefully, hey, potentially he wins. That would be insane. Wouldn't that would be one of the best storylines across college football if Raymond Woodie came in here and started winning, because no one expects it, not even myself. So, and Reese, if he goes 0-11, 3-8 next year, then you make a move and see what happened. Hopefully, over these next 2 years, Reese, they can correct some of the wrongs that they've had on campus and some things that make this job extremely unattractive. And we'll see. But I think at least you get a guy who can get you through the 2 years that you're going to need to try to start getting things moving in the right direction. Drum Major, I started the show. I was at the Senior Bowl all week, so the Shrine Bowl and Senior Bowl were on the same week this year. I'm still going through film, talking to scouts and talking to people who were at the Shrine Bowl. The Shrine Bowl coverage and recap will come later this week when I do my recruiting rankings and things like that on the live stream, probably about Wednesday night. I'll talk about Shaq Davis. I'll talk about Dallas Daniels, what Mark Evans was there, BJ Thompson, Truman Jones, Titus Leo. There was a bunch of a whole bunch of FCS prospects there, man. Let's see. So let's get to some recruiting, man. So I'm still ranking classes. I'm still doing some research. Yeah, listen, I got the whole FCS to cover, so there's a lot of classes I got to go look at, go recruit by recruit, watch some film. So I'm still trying to kind of catch up, but I wanted to put together a list of some guys who have really stuck out to me that I really do think could be some of the next stars for their upcoming schools. Some guys I really like their film, really like their accolades, really like what I saw from them in high school, man. I really wanted to give those some shine on the show. We'll start with Cam Beiser, a UAPB commit. Now, I'm just gonna throw this out here. There is somebody on this show, and I'm the only person on this show that said that I really do think that Alonzo Hampton is going to shock some people on the recruiting trail. And he goes out here and lands a 3-star edge rusher, 6'2", 235. He's a top 100 edge rusher in this recruiting class. Was a Texas 4A newcomer of the year last year, and was a first-team All-State selection in 2021. Over his career, 20-plus tackles for loss. I believe he had 20-plus sacks as well. This kid can rush the passer, does a good job against the run, and he has the build of someone who can be one of the next competitors for the SWAC Defensive Player of the Year once he develops a little bit. I think Cam is going to see some time for UAPB this year. They have a huge hole on the defensive line, and Cam Beiser is one of the highest rated commitments in the entire FCS in terms of the 2023 class. I mean, he's top 15 in the entire FCS in terms of recruiting rankings for recruits. And so Cam Beiser, a massive pickup for UAPB. Love his film. He's aggressive, he's physical, and the number one thing he does is goes and gets after the quarterback, and you have to love it. Jeremiah Collins, three-star cornerback, 6'2", 160, was committed to Louisville, decommitted earlier this year, wound up at Austin P. He's a top 51 athlete, number 18 player in the state of Tennessee, and is a consensus top 800 prospect. This kid has the length, the speed, and the ball skills to be a real problem in this Austin P secondary. And Austin P, their defense, they love aggressive corners. They want guys who, yeah, you may give up a play or two here, but they want you to be physical at the line of scrimmage. They want you to be able to create turnovers. And if they give up a play or two, that's okay because you're going to get it back on the back end when they force an interception, get a forced fumble, or they just want long, rangy, physical corners. And that's something that Jeremiah Collins offers Austin P. He's a top 5 FCS prospect this offseason, and I think he's going to see some time extremely early for the Governors this season. Jalen Woods, three-star quarterback out of Woodward Academy, 6'3", 200 pounds, on his way to Southern, is a top 105 quarterback in the country for this recruiting cycle, was the Georgia 3, I believe it's the Region 3, 6A all-region player of the year this year for Woodward Academy, had over his whole high school career, over 3 seasons, 44 passing touchdowns, only 9 interceptions. He does a great job at taking care of the football. He's accurate, makes great decisions, can make some plays with his legs if needed, but he is not afraid to step up in the pocket, take a shot, and throw a dart across the middle, man. This kid has the arm talent. This kid has the I really do think this kid, he probably won't start this year because I don't think there's going to be a lot of freshmen. I think they're probably going to go with Noah Bowden at quarter, or I believe it's Bowden at quarterback for Southern this year. But I really do think Jalen Woods going into 2024 could be the guy for Southern, man. I really like Jalen Woods. I think his potential's through the roof, and this is a guy who could be an all conference player for Southern. And they really loaded up on quarterbacks. There's going to be a legit QB battle, and but man, I really do think his upside is higher than any quarterback they have on the roster. I just don't know if Dooley brought in Bowden to sit on the bench for back-to-back years, and I don't know if he's going to try to redshirt Jalen or not. But I think he has the talent to start year one. I just don't know if they're gonna. I don't know if they're going to pull the trigger on him this year or not, because as of right now, I just don't trust Dooley with QB decisions after him not starting Bubba next year. So I'm not going to make any wild predictions on that QB race because I don't know what he's thinking, because he should have Bubba should have started all 12, 13 games that they played last year. But moving on to the next round, man, Colson Kuhn, running back in the class of 2023. He's not ranked. I didn't pick all these guys based off stars or anything. I based it off what I saw on film and what I think they're going to fit into their program. 5'11", 180 out of Wyoming. He's the first ever player in Wyoming high school football history to win back-to-back state Gatorade National Player of the Year. This kid is electric, man. Last season alone, just last season, 2,100 rushing yards, 34 rushing touchdowns, joining his brother at Montana State. And people ask me all the time, why did the Montanas always just seem to win and they don't get any respect on recruiting? Because guys like this are unranked because people don't do their due diligence in states like Wyoming. And you got a 2-time Gatorade Player of the Year that had over 2,200 rushing yards and 34 touchdowns in 1 year. He's going to wind up at Montana State. He's going to wind up being an All-American. He's going to wind up leading them to the playoffs eventually in a few years when he's the starting running back. Colson Kuhn, massive pickup, man, and he's going to be a major pickup moving forward for Montana State. Robert Lockhart III, former Jackson State commits to FAMU, 3-star wide receiver, 5'6", 175 according to 247 Sports. He's the number 86 athlete in this recruiting class, number 67 player in the state of Georgia out of Langston Hughes. Over his high school career, 1,200 receiving yards, 13 touchdowns, and this makes sense. Now, I always try to say this. I'm always trying to promote this. This should be the saying of the show. Two things can be true at once. Yes, this isn't technically a flip because Jackson State did not reoffer him, but he fits better into FAMU's offense than he does Maurice Harris and TC Taylor's offense. TC Taylor and just new Jackson State staff, they are going to want bigger wide receivers that can make plays. That is not Robert Lockhart. He is not a big guy that you could put on the outside and go make plays. He can go to FAMU where they have had major success at developing smaller wide receivers and putting them in positions to succeed. And Robert Lockhart is going to eat at FAMU because they love smaller wide receivers that can fly. And that is the exact replica of Robert Lockhart's game. I really do think he's a much better fit for what FAMU wants to do than anything that Jackson State wants to do at the wide receiver position right now. So all this checks out. And I really do like the fit that Lockhart has at FAMU, and they're going to have to get some depth at the wide receiver position. And looking at another wide receiver, man, Santana Fleming, 3-star wide receiver, 5'10", 160. Number 118, that's just a wide receiver on there. He was an Under Armour All-American selection this year, man. This kid's legit. He's a 4-star, according I believe Rivals has him as a 4-star. About 700 receiving yards this year, 3 touchdowns in 2022 as he battles some injuries. But if you're looking for Florida speed, that is Santana Fleming. And when you look at what the offense that Western Carolina utilizes, it is a air raid. We're going to throw the football and we're going to try to put up as many points as possible. Kerwin Bell has made a living at Valdosta recruiting the state of Florida. Santana Fleming is that guy. And that is the sole reason Western Carolina is going to have one of the scariest offenses in the FCS, man. They have so many athletes coming back. They have so much speed. I am so interested to see how that translates to the SoCon this upcoming season. But Santana Fleming has the ability to be a top wide receiver in the SoCon, even in year one, man. I think this kid's potential's through the roof. Going into signing day, he was the highest rated FCS commitment in the entire country. He's not anymore. There's some few teams that posted, some higher ratings once all the ratings got adjusted. But man, Santana Fleming, legit ball player, man. I'm really excited to see what he does at Western Carolina. Listen, everyone knows I love offensive line on this show. The highest rated offensive lineman to commit to an FCS program is headed to Howard. His name is Jonathan Slack, 3-star offensive lineman, 6'3", 260. I think he weighs a little bit more than that based on the film and some of the pictures I've seen of him. But he's a top 70 interior offensive lineman, is an Under Armour All-American selection, is going to play in the Under Armour All-American game. He was committed to Michigan State. And when I tell you, if you want to see some film where people are getting mauled and that he has grown man strength, go watch some Jonathan Slack film. This kid is a mauler. He's mean. And I'm talking about his hands are so heavy. When he comes off the ball and hits some of these other kids in the chest, man, you can tell they have to rethink their life in one-on-one. I love Slack's potential here. Howard has a unique ability to develop really, really solid offensive linemen. And I think Jonathan Slack is going to be the next one in that pipeline, man. We know what the MEAC is. Big, physical, tough football. Jonathan Slack is going to be one of the next great offensive linemen at Howard. And then Isaiah Kendall, 3-star wide receiver, 6'3", 175, a top 85 wide receiver, a top 5 player out of the state of Arkansas, committed, or signed with Jackson State. He's been committed for a little while. He's the career receiving yards leader at Newport High School this past year in the playoffs, man. Almost 400 yards receiving and 6 touchdowns. And the reason I put that stat and the reason I really, really like it is that I always say that players that step up when it matters the most are my favorite to watch. And Isaiah Kendall does just that. When it comes down to it, it's the playoffs, it's a big game. His team needs to play. Isaiah Kendall is going to be a guy who can do it. I love his size at 6'3", 175. He has solid speed for that size. He does a great job at catching the football with his hands, does a great job at high pointing the football, does a great job ball tracking, and has pretty great route running for a true freshman. We'll see how much action he gets at Jackson State this year. They are really deep at the wide receiver position, but I do think that Isaiah Kendall could potentially find a role, especially later in the season as he develops a little bit. But man, Jackson's just so deep at wide receiver. I just no knock on him. I just don't know how many opportunities are really going to be there in that wide receiving room. So we'll see. But man, Isaiah Kendall, the future of Jackson State. I'm glad that he's stuck with the Tigers. Always like seeing these big prospects who could go elsewhere come to the FCS. So man, shout out to Kendall sticking with JSU. And then, listen, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name, but I believe it's Namadi something. But listen, we're just going to go with Namadi here. 3-star edge rusher, 6'5", 230, a top 110 edge rusher going to Princeton. This is a kid that had multiple P5, group of 5 FBS offers, decided to go to Princeton anyway. He did not have to go to Princeton. He had plenty of offers elsewhere. Wound up at Princeton, had 17 QB hurries, 6.5 tackles for loss as a junior. And this is a guy who, when you look at Princeton's defense, they've had multiple Ivy League Defensive Player of the Year honors. They do a great job of being aggressive. They had one of the top run defenses in the country this past season. And I think he could be the next great one at Princeton, man. This was a huge pickup for them. He's been a top 10 FCS commitment / signee for the longest. This was a massive pickup for Princeton, man. And I'm really, really excited to see what he does in the Ivy League. And then the last topic. Do we really think I wasn't going to talk about this? Listen, I'm not going to do a whole schedule review for everybody, man. Listen, I cover the FCS. You know how long of a show it would be to go through the entire schedule of everybody. We're going to have to talk about this. And again, multiple things can be true at once. I understand it. I understand why this had to happen. But this is it's just frustrating because I know what's going to happen. I see it coming from a mile away. Fam is going. It's Celebration Bowl or bust. Willie Simmons tweeted it. Every FAMU fan in my mentions when I tweeted out my tweet about it came at me about it. Shout out to the ONG Strike Zone for tweeting out the schedule. I get it. I completely understand why it had to happen because you had to have more home games because of all these classics, and I understand that your AD came in late and didn't really have time to schedule an FCS program. I got you. I get all that. It's all about money, and I get it. But if FAMU does not win the SWAC, the SWAC East, I don't want to see a tweet. I don't want to get a phone call. I don't want to see a comment on a live stream. I don't want to see a comment on a video. I don't want to see anything. I don't want to hear Willie or anyone from FAMU cough in the direction of a mic. 9-2, it doesn't matter. There is no future in the FCS playoffs this year. None. Not even a little bit. That is just I don't understand it. I really don't. Listen, UCF, solid game, and I'm hoping they compete in that one. But it's just what I don't understand is why do you risk playing one of the like West Florida, their last FCS game beat McNeese. Like this is a D2 program that is good enough to beat FCS programs regardless of who it is. Why even risk it? I don't understand it. I really don't understand it. I get it's an in-state school. They might travel a little bit. It gives you a home game, but I really don't get it. Lincoln, like the fact that the SWAC is picking on Lincoln, like I don't think people understand how bad Lincoln is. They got beat 55-0. No offense to Southern Utah. They got beat 55-0 by Southern Utah. And then on top of that, got beat 37-2 by Texas Southern last year. They played another D2 school in Grand Valley, got beat like 60 something to nothing. Like this, like Lincoln is not even D2. Like Lincoln is, I believe, in AIA, and they just started their program. Like that win should detract from your strength of schedule alone. The fact that you couldn't find anybody to be on the schedule, like poor Lincoln is playing all road games, is going to have like 8 SWAC losses. I can't. I understand the reasoning, fam. I understand the reasoning. Good old FAMU. I can't wait to go to Bragg this year. But this is ridiculous. I already don't like D2 games, but two D2 games, or no, one D2 and one equivalent of like a weaker high school program on the schedule. Like IMG, and there's multiple schools in the state of Florida and at the high school level that can probably compete with Lincoln. That's just it bothers me. Like in my core when I see that. Like there is no reason for two D2 games in a NAIA, whatever they are, on your schedule. If you're quote one of the top teams in the FCS and you are asking to be in the top 20 and you're saying you deserve to be in the top 25 and all this, and it's like, man, they're going to play. Let me look at the schedule. Maybe Jackson is probably going to be preseason ranked. So they're going to play one ranked game the entire season. The entire season. Bethune's not going to be ranked this season. Alabama A&M is not going to be ranked this season. Prairie View, maybe if everything goes right, but probably not. Texas Southern's not going to be ranked this season. Southern's not. Valley's definitely not. Alabama State isn't. West Florida's D2. South Florida's FBS, and they're definitely not going to be ranked in the FBS. So you got Jackson. And if you don't win that game, all hell breaks loose. All hell breaks loose at that point. So I get it. And I think there was too many people when I tweeted out the tweet. If you didn't see it, I said problem, not getting into the playoffs because you play a D2. Solution, schedule more D2s. It all makes sense. And EA, listen, I'm not going to say there's a very notable Jackson State player named Isaiah Bolden who even tweeted out when this game was scheduled, that West Florida game, that said that scrimmage did not go that way, or that blowout way. So I'll just say that there was a very notable Jackson State player who has been in Florida that said that is not necessarily true. So I'll just put that out there. But I mean, I'm not even talking about just normal FCS schools. Like I'm still begging. Like it is on my Christmas wish list this year. I want North Carolina A&T and FAMU on the phone together trying to figure out a home and home. There is no reason at all that A&T and FAMU could not be on the phone with each other. That would be, and I don't want to hear money or whatever. There's no way that game doesn't make money as a home and home. Zero chance. I refuse to believe it. A&T coming to Bragg would be a must-see game, and there would be people who aren't even A&T and FAMU fans that would want to come see that game. And same when they go to Greensboro. That would be amazing to see. And the excuse I've had so many DMs and conversations about this. People texting me. The rumor is FAMU cannot get anyone to come to Bragg for a home and home. And I need the proof. I tell everyone, give me the proof and I will apologize. There is zero chance that Alcorn State is getting people to come to Lorman, Mississippi for a game, and you can't find people to come play at Bragg in Tallahassee, Florida. You can't convince me that people would rather travel all the way to Lorman, Mississippi and not play in Bragg at FAMU. You can't convince me that Valley can get teams to agree to games, and PV and all these other teams can get teams to agree to home and homes, and you can't find a team that would play you. I just can't. Like Jackson found someone to come play them at the Vet when they're in the midst of not losing. Like Jackson was at the top of their game under Prime, and they found Campbell to come down and play in the vet on homecoming of all games. Of homecoming of all games in the middle of Prime's tenure, they found somebody to come down and play in the vet on homecoming for an out of conference game and didn't even give them a return game. But fam can't find anyone to come play in Bragg. I can't believe it. I refuse to believe it, man. There's no chance. There's no chance that is the case. And if Montana State, if Montana, if North Dakota State, if South Dakota State, if all these teams that are competing for national championships and consistently beating teams to death can find home games, I can't believe you. The reason you have the second longest streak in the country is because you're beating D2s at home. I gotta answer me this. This is for all the FAMU, all the HBC, all the FAMU, whoever. When is the last time a real FCS school traveled to Bragg to play? That's a real question. Name the last time a legit FCS contender came and played at Bragg. I'm just waiting. That you can't convince me. You cannot convince me that everyone is scared of coming to play FAMU. There's no chance. There's no chance. If people aren't scared to go to the Fargo Dome to play North Dakota State, travel to Brookings to play South Dakota State, no, there's no chance people are terrified to come play FAMU. I refuse to believe it. I can't. I can't believe that. I just logically that does not make any sense. It doesn't. But man, listen, I'll take your calls for just a few minutes, man, before I end the stream. 701-779-9585. I just have to ask, Coastal Carolina? Do we understand how long Coastal Carolina has now been FBS? That's crazy. Like Coastal Carolina has won bowl games at the FBS level, but since the last time. Oh man, that's crazy to me. That's insane. That blows my mind. That that's so wild to me. Zoe said Willie Simmons is 0-3 against JSU Blue. Does JSU travel to Bragg? Okay, so I know it's the Orange Blossom Classic in 2023. Does JSU travel to Bragg in 2024, or does FAMU go to the Vet in 2024? Which way does that flip? I don't know who's the home team this year. I hate how they quote unquote give home teams and neutral site games because it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. But who travels where in 2024? Does Jackson State go to okay, they come to the Vet. Okay. That's gonna be such a good game. So you got so the next time Jackson plays in Bragg would be 2025 in that case. That's still a long time. That's still a super, super long time. Blue understand the no FCS schools. That's not true, EA. That's not true. Alcorn has had multiple years in a row with home games against FCS schools. Stephen F. Austin was a preseason top 10 team and traveled to Lorman, Mississippi. Have you been to Lorman? Come on. That's wild. Yeah, EA, you know you're lying. I appreciate you supporting the show, mate. Unless you've been a long time listener, you know that's a lie. You know that's a lie. It is. PV hosted a top 5 Incarnate Word team last year. I always trust Mr. Dwayne. He said the last FCS out of conference game in Bragg was Coastal Carolina in 2016. Guys, I'm going to put this in perspective. 2016 was my sophomore year in college. That was 1 year. 1 year after I graduated high school was the last time FAMU played a home game in Bragg against an FCS school. A home game like that. I really want people to like think about that, of how long that really is. I mean, so let's just say, okay, This year they don't play one. We're going to go in the 2024 season. It will be 8 years next year since FAM played a home game against an FCS opponent. 8 years. That mm, that's a little wild. I'm just going to say, listen, it's suspicious. It is very suspicious. I'm just going to say that. It's a little suspicious, but I love FAMU. I'm going to a game this year and brag. That's a little suspicious. I'm just going to put that out there. Oh, he said Coastal Carolina went down there and beat them. Oh goodness. So yeah, I saw you and Ken talking about the schedule. Man, it's just I feel so bad for some of these schools, man, because let's just keep it honest. Okay. And we're gonna have an honest conversation here about the SWAC. Um let, I'm trying to put this the nicest way I can without, getting my like credentials revoked. But the SWAC went to pimp out like FAM and Jackson and some of these like bigger SWAC schools, all these, random classics and wanting to play in all these random cities. Like there's no reason that a school in a conference should have 3 or 4 home games in a season. That blows my mind. Like, how in the world do you let a school in your conference only have a handful of home games and not, I mean, what? Because Jackson, Bethune, I think there's another school, they play like the first 4 or 5 games on the road. How does that even happen? That it makes no sense. And then on top of that, too, everyone knows that it's tight on money to play FCS football anyway. And you got these schools traveling all across the South, not playing at home, not making money. And then are you making money from certain games that you're playing away from home? Debatable. And just it like the logic doesn't hit outside of just trying to like exploit the big brands of the conference. To be honest with you, I mean, there is no other reason to have some of these games in these random locations if it wasn't because let me put it like this. Let's take the SWAC Classic and throw out another what other is just random classic, or you can do the Orange Blossom Classic. If you took FAMU and Jackson State and Southern took like the 3 biggest brands, Grambling you could throw in there, and you put UAPB and Alabama A&M, man, the SWAC wouldn't even care about having it. They would probably cancel it. They said, man, we don't need that. There's no chance. Zero chance for having that game. So, I mean, just to consistently screw the big brands of the conference because you want to put them in these games all across the South, like that makes no sense for Jackson to only have 4 home games. That just doesn't make any sense to me. We're not talking about scheduling tough games so that HBC football can be respected around the country. We have to start winning top 25 games on the regular. JSU really got 5 home games of SWAT champion. I like that. That's funny. I stopped posting neutral site games outside of the Celebration Bowl SWAT MEAC challenge. I agree. I've been on this train. Listen, this isn't new for me. I've talked about this, Lawrence. I mean, you've heard me talk about it because you've been listening to the show a while. Neutral site games make no sense to me unless it's like an established, like the Bayou Classic. That's big enough, and that's historic. I get it. But just to have random neutral site games, like what was going to be the SWAT Classic in Birmingham or wherever, but that's just dumb. Like, why? For what? It's not fun. Like, do a home and home. Like, because for me, let me just put it, I'm taking it even outside the HBCU realm. My biggest thing when I was because I just used to go to games even that I had no affiliation to. Like I would go to football games across the South when I was in like college and in high school and stuff that I didn't have any affiliation to. I just wanted to go see the atmosphere, what the campus was like, what because every school has a different culture, atmosphere, whatever you want to say about it. I always love going to other campuses at just neutral games just to experience what it's like to be in that stadium. If you consistently don't play at home, no one understands what makes your campus, your traditions, your school stadium, your campus so great. You have fans who are going to Miami for the Orange Blossom Classic. Man, I don't care about going to the Orange Bowl or whatever the hell it's called, the Hard Rock Stadium. Give me a game at FAMU so I can see what Bragg is like, so I can see what the campus of FAMU is like. Give me a game in the Fargo Dome so I can see what North Dakota State's like, what the campus is like, what the environment's like. I don't care about going to the Viking Stadium for a neutral site game. Give me a game on that campus. So one, the surrounding businesses and communities can benefit from having that game. I get to come back to my campus as an alum and be on the campus that I've developed at from like 18 to 22 or whatever, however old you were when you went to college. Like that all means more than all these random neutral site games. Like how many times can you travel to Miami and it be like a cool experience? Like once you go to Miami 2 or 3 times, you've done everything. Like that's great, cool. But to just consistently go to my like and like the one in Mobile, come on, man. I live here. Come here once. It's all cool. You don't need to come back here again unless you're coming from Mardi Gras. That's it. So I'll just put it like that. Yeah, man. I talked about him a little bit earlier in the show. I talked about how he was a little bit raw at wide receiver, but man, his speed, his height, his athleticism, man, it's going to make him a solid draft pick. FAMU cannot lose to Southeast. Lose that by 78 points. Yeah, they didn't lose that bad. I agree, Jaron. Alcorn, PV, they got solid schedules, man. They did a hell of a job on their schedules. Not all Rattlers feel like this is a good schedule, but most I've talked to not like this schedule. Yeah, I get it, but yeah, it's just a little bit disappointing. I really wanted to because I really do think FAMU could be that good this year, and I just want to see them put on excuse me, for the conference, for just fam, man, to go out there and because to me, you beat West Florida, you beat Lincoln. I mean, does anyone care? Does that make okay? So when you look at the overall season, like I mean, do those wins really matter? Does anyone really care that you beat 2D2 teams? Or like how big of a win if you go and schedule a Mercer, how much bigger of a win would that be for fam to get a big win over Mercer at home in front of your home crowd than it would be to beat Lincoln? I just don't think I don't understand how fans, like the fans who are supporting this type of scheduling, get excited. Like, who care? Like, for me, whatever my favorite team is or whatever I'm doing, like, man, I don't care when teams play Lincoln. No one talks about that game. You get no pub the week of the game. No one cares. The fans aren't involved in the game. Like, who gets excited for Lincoln versus FAM? Not a soul. Lincoln fans don't care. FAMU fans, you can act like you care. You don't care about that game. That's a win. You mark that. You write that on your little schedule in your kitchen and say W. You can go ahead and write that now as you print it out. There's no invested interest. You get no media attention. No one's hype about that game. No one recaps that game. You get zero exposure, anything from that game, other than you get a home game against some people that people are going to go to the game for everything, but not to watch the game. It's a lot of FAMU hate, but anyways, go up to FAMU and go Bama State. I don't think this hate. I don't know about the chat, but it's not really hate. Yeah, way too many classics. JSU has back-to-back classics. Doesn't. But yeah, not playing a home game till October is wild. Is wild to me. Excuse me. JSU should not be playing Southern this year. Should have took a home game instead. I'm kind of with you on that. But at the same time, Kevin, I've heard some JSU fans say that you have to play that game. But I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I mean, that's if they make the SWAC championship. Like that's a huge what if. But I get what you're saying. But I mean, that's definitely pimp because if you don't make the SWAC championship, then you don't. 3 darn neutral site games. JSU is going to San Marcos for $350,000. They can make over $1 million playing at home. We didn't have a real ID this year. We just got a new ID. No, I'm with you. It's not the current AD's fault. And Dave, or T, I'll get to you in just a second. No, this is not on Tiffany Dawn Sykes. I just want to put that out there. This is not anything about her. This was the previous AD that did this, and she kind of got her coming in late really put herself in a bad situation. So this is not on the current AD. I agree, Mr. Dwayne. That wasn't the thing. I don't know. Hang on, let me go back to the schedule. I still got to coordinate other games, Max, but I was thinking is probably going to be Prairie View is the one I'm going to aim for. That'll probably be the one I try to come to is the Prairie View game. I think that I can't read. I think that's homecoming. So that'll probably be the game I try to attend, Max, is PV on October 28th.
Think that I can't read. I think that's
2388. You're live.
Hey, Blues Double T.
What's
So
good, man?
correct me if I'm going on. Correct me if I'm wrong. What all we hear is they don't want to play non-HBCU teams. Nobody want to go to the games and that. Correct.
Yeah.
So is it playing D2 schools worse?
I guess. I don't know. I think the idea, the way it was explained to me is the West Florida game, it's an in-state game, so they're hoping that I guess West Florida brings some fans. That's what someone told me, but I don't know what is West Florida's attendance. It can't be more than like 5,000 a game.
Yeah, that's about it. It's a small. I mean, it's a D2 school. They're not big. You know, it's big. It's a nice size for a D2, but it's not a big school. You know. And
No.
then, you know, before they lost their coach, FAMU wouldn't have beat West Florida last year or the year before. They not beating West Florida. West Florida ran the playoffs. They not beating them. Especially 2 years ago. FAMU not beating West Florida 2 years ago. Only reason they might beat them this year because they got a new coach.
Yeah, I don't know what West Florida is going to be. Listen, that their head coach was a large part because you also got to think this is their first ever coaching change too. Because I mean, he started the program, so the fact that Shinnick left, I don't know. I personally don't know how good West Florida is going to be. I think Fam will beat them. It'll be it'll be kind of similar to how they played Albany State. I think I can see it being a competitive game, but I right now because of the unknowns with West Florida, I can't pick them to upset Fam.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying last year and the year before, they wouldn't have beat West Florida. With the old coach, they weren't going to beat no West Florida. Especially 2 years ago when they ran the D2 championships. FAMU was not beating West Florida. West Florida would have punished them. Literally punished them. You don't think so?
Well, I don't know. It would just depend. Because there's a big step up from McNeese to FAMU. I will say that. Like Fam would smack around McNeese. McNeese has not been that good recently. Now we'll see what golf turns them into, but I don't know about that. I do think it'll be competitive. We'll see, man. I want to. It's what February 5th. I mean, I have no idea what any program's going to be, man. This is all speculation. So I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
understand the reasoning behind West Florida, but I do think Fam will win that game. I can't pick them for the upset.
But just to be clear, everybody that think we hating on FAMU, this is a terrible schedule for any FCS team. You probably could go through any FCS team. I bet you they ain't got no 2-3 D2 team schedule on that schedule. Probably the worst. I mean, I don't know. Probably go to what's that? The Pioneer League or something that's non-scholarship. They probably don't got no D2 schedule.
They might because those are like a outside of probably St. Thomas and Davidson. Those are probably just a step above D2. To be honest with you.
But they non-scholarship though. But geez. But anyway, we ain't hating. But you don't find schedules like this. You just don't find it. Especially for FAMU, you supposed to be one of the top schools in the SWAC. Why y'all playing so many D2 schools? Y'all not gonna get no injuries. Y'all players rested. Y'all gonna get a lot of stats. Especially with Lincoln. That's a high school team. Let's be honest. Lincoln been trash forever. They just got a team back. They've been trash forever. They just had a prep football team for like ever. Lincoln is trash. None of their schools. You said Lincoln all the way schools. Pennsylvania is like number 2 football state in the country. All them schools up there in Lincoln got all the way games. That mean they trash. Don't no PA school want to play Lincoln because they trash. I mean, whatever. All right, good show, Blue.
Hey, appreciate you, man. Hey, I'll get to the next caller real quick. Let's see. Hang on. Yeah, they West Florida landed Stokes, and the other question I had it pulled up, damn, but Pete Shinnick went to Townsend, in the CAA. Hang on, I gotta find the comment I wanted to address. Adrian, he said, "Who does LSU and Bama play for homecoming?" Listen, I said one D2 is enough. If you're gonna play a D2, schedule it for homecoming. That's cool. Two D2s is the problem. Two, and also Adrian, I get it. Listen, passionate about this. I understand. I need an explanation why the SWAC as a conference has scheduled more D2 and NAIA games than out of conference games against other FCS competition. They're the only big FCS conference to do that. They have more FCS NAIA games than FCS out of conference games. I wouldn't try to compare scheduling homecoming games to that. So I would just ease up on the comparisons before we get all the facts there. 7120, you're live.
Yeah, I'm looking at our FAMU schedule. You got Jackson State, you got South Florida. I mean, you got to have an easy game after those two games. Can't play three hard games back to back to back. I mean, if anything, they should have moved Lincoln into West Florida slot, and then maybe got a weaker FCS school in the November 11th slot. But and if they think West Florida is going to bring a lot of fans to FAM, I don't see that happening based off of experiences with with A&T playing Elon just right up the road. They didn't really bring a lot of fans. When they played Appalachian State, I mean, A&T fans traveled to Boone, but Boone fans didn't travel to Greensboro. So I don't know. It's interesting. But I can see them scheduling a D2 school or a winnable game after playing Jackson State and South Florida.
Yeah, that's why I said like one D2, that's cool. Like I get it. Everyone's got to have a quote unquote easy win, even because you could probably schedule like a Pioneer League school or someone who just is going to come down and catch a beating. But it's just, man, two is tough, especially when one of them isn't even D2. Like you scheduled just like I said, a glorified high school team to come in and catch a beat. Like FAMU, if they played all their starters, could score as many points as they wanted on them. Like they could do what Southern did to Virginia Lynchburg if they wanted.
Yeah.
That's my main issue is like if you're because I get the West Florida. Listen, bring them in-state school, all cool. But man, the Lincoln one is what's really bothering me. Because I mean, even there's some other SWAC schools that did a great job. Alcorn, even Jackson State. Jackson State doesn't even have a D2. They went out and playing Texas State, and I get how the thing worked out, but Alabama, I mean, there's just too many schools that have it already figured out that it's just FAMU's too good of a program to be playing Lincoln, man. That's just too far.
Yeah, I agree, especially if you're trying to get an at-large bid in the playoffs. Playing two Division II schools ain't going to help your case in it.
No, I mean, we'll see. Listen, it's Willie has said it. FAMU fans have said it. It's Celebration Bowl or bust. Hey, we'll see, man. I think they have a really good shot this year, but if it doesn't work out, we're gonna have to revisit this conversation because I think there's gonna be a lot of regret come the end of November.
Hey, but why put all your eggs in one basket? Why can't it be Celebration Bowl and FCS playoffs or bust?
Well, my biggest thing is if you're good enough to go to the Celebration Bowl and win, why don't you think you're good enough to go compete against some tough out of conference opponents?
Yeah,
like
that's
it's just
true.
it's counterproductive if you're so good. Yeah,
And
I
you talk
mean,
about the
yeah, that's what I'm
anti-Florida
saying.
and man.
I want that matchup so bad. I've talked to some A&T alums and some FAMU alums. They both want that game. I I think that would be an exciting game. I still want A&T and Alcorn to have a rematch. That's just personally me. I would really like to see a Celebration Bowl rematch between Alcorn and North Carolina A&T. That I think that would draw really, really well in both Norman and Greensboro. But we'll see. I don't know. It it's just it just it's disappointing, man. It's gonna everything is gonna come down to September 3rd, and they got some tough game. I mean, listen, going to Baton Rouge and playing Southern this year is not going to be a joke. PV is going to be a contender in the West. They got them for homecoming. That's going to be a tough game. And on top of that, too, I really do think Alabama State's going to be pretty solid. They got to come to Bragg. They got some tough games in terms of in conference. So you're putting a lot of eggs in one basket, man. But hey man, I got a lot of callers on the call line now, but I appreciate you calling in.
Okay, thanks, Boo.
Yep. All right, I'm gonna go 0477 7998 and then 4495 to end the show. 0477, you're live.
Hey, what's up, Blue?
What's good,
Hey,
man?
yeah, hey, so no, I mean it's no excuses for the schedule. I know, okay, I said that now I'm about to get one. But the AD, I knew AD, she was trying to get somebody. I mean, that's what she said. She was trying to get somebody, and I guess it didn't work out. So, it is what it is. Now, if it's like this next year, then okay, yeah. But then you could talk. But I would have loved to play, like you said, A&T or Sanford or Sanford or somebody like that. That would have been awesome for Bragg would have been hyped for that.
Oh, I'm with you.
But
If there's a way to get A&T, because A&T will probably have to get an out of conference game with the way the CAA scheduling worked out, but also even like Central. Could you imagine North Carolina Central FAMU? How, and let's say,
right,
let's just say, I'm not making any predictions. Central and FAMU play in the Celebration Bowl this year. If that gets replayed in 2024 as a home and home, and they got to come to Bragg or whatever, man, that would be one of the most talked about games of the entire season.
yeah, and like I said, I don't think the majority of rattlers are like they heard this schedule and they were, oh wow, can't wait for this. I think the majority of us were like, hey, um, okay, we not super happy about this, but it is what it is, and you're
Yeah.
just trying to work through it. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Go ahead.
but I think this will be an awesome year for us.
Hey, it's prom. I mean, listen, they killed the recruiting trail. It That Orange Blossom Classic. I know a lot of people are look talking about what's it going to be like without prom there, man. I think this year the hype behind the OBC is going to be insane because we don't really know what Jackson State's going to be until after that South Carolina State game. The hype surrounding FAMU is
Right.
going to be unbelievable. That OBC is going to be. I think the hype's going to be there. I think people are really, really going to care what happens in that game, and people are going to be tuned in because there's a lot of storylines going into that game.
Right. Oh, last well, two things, but South Carolina State took us off of their schedule because we were supposed to play them this year. They took us off of their schedule, so one of those games would have been South Carolina State. So then that kind of had us running around trying to replace them. But
Who did
then
they replace
two,
y'all? Who did they
if you can
replace you
comment
guys with?
on the recruiting and how Land did, and enjoy the show.
Hey, appreciate you, man. Um,
Okay, thanks.
I talked about Land a little bit earlier. Man had a solid week, showed his versatility, and I think the fact that he got to play at Mike in the game, man, that's huge for him, and that he performed really well. And then also on top of that, was still able to get into the edge rusher position and go make plays off the edge. That was huge. He had a good week, man. I want to see what he weighs in at the combine and what he does there. His testing numbers are going to be extremely interesting, to say the least, man. But Isaiah had a solid week. He just has to get a bit more comfortable with his movement and understanding what he has to do at the mic position. 7998, you're live.
Yeah, Blue. I'm a JSU fan, and I got a problem with their schedule. And my thing is, our number one rivals coming out the East the last 2 years, I say preseason, was supposed to be Florida A&M and Alabama A&M. Do you realize, including 23 this year, we haven't played either one of those schools on Mississippi soil? And I really think that it's taken away from, the Jackson State fan from seeing a game like that without having to travel or without, looking at it on ESPN or whatever. And I believe whoever doing the schedule, and I don't know all the ins and outs of, why we are doing this or whatever, but I think that schedule could be a little more fan friendly. But that's all I had to say. Just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Hey, appreciate you calling in, man. I will say, caller, based on the chat, it looks like they're coming to the vet next year. So listen, it'll be all good. 4495, you're live.
Hey, Blue. How you doing?
Not too bad. How about you?
Good, good, good. So I had a question regarding FAMU, and is there a possibility for them to lose to Jackson State at the Orange Blossom Classic and still clinch the East?
Yes. So let's just say FAM loses to Orange Blossom Classic. All that would have to happen is JSU lose 2 conference games the rest of the season, and FAMU would go. So FAMU would have to win out after that. And if FAMU finished, how many, what, 5 or no, well, they'll play 8 conference games. If FAMU finished 7-1 in conference, as long as Jackson State finished 6-2 or worse, FAMU could still clinch the East. That because all conference games count, and all that matters is the conference record. The only way the tiebreaker goes into play is if Jackson loses one game and Jackson finishes 7-1 in conference, and FAMU wins out and finishes 7-1. The fact they have the same record, the first tiebreaker is head to head, and Jackson would win the head to head since they beat FAMU in this scenario. So that's the only way FAMU can clinch the East if they lose to Jackson State, is that Jackson would have to lose 2 more conference games at some point during the season.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Blue.
Yeah, no problem. Of course, we got to end the show with the legend, Coach Green. Coach Green, you're live, man.
Man, what up, man?
What's up, man?
Hey, you gotta take it to when it comes to scheduling. You gotta take into account, dates on working out with the other FCS schools. Maybe the dates couldn't work out, and they had to settle for a D2 school. Because sometimes that happens. Because once the conference schedule come out, and then you gotta fill them other games in, and the date don't work out. Don't you think that happens sometimes?
No, it definitely does. But I mean, I still think it's looking back at the bigger issue that, I mean, since 2016, the dates haven't lined up, and you couldn't find anybody to sign up.
Because you also got anything with FAMU situation, they didn't have no AD for a while.
No, I'm with you. That's why I said, like, this year, I get it. Like, and I understand, like, multiple things can be true at once. FAMU's goal is to win the SWAC. and go to the Celebration Bowl. So out of conference strength of schedule doesn't matter for them, and I get it. That's putting all your eggs in one basket. Willie's been vocal, SID's been vocal, other coaches, players. They think this is their year, and they've been close. Let's be honest. Let's go back to even when
Yeah.
they were in the MEAC. The last few years they were in the MEAC. I mean, they were close in what was it 2019? They technically won the MEAC, but they were on like probation or something like that, and they couldn't go, and they handed it to A&T. A&T got to go, won the Celebration Bowl. So I think FAM just sees this being their year. They killed it on the recruiting trail. They got the starting quarterback coming back. Willie's fired up and he's been super confident. I mean, he's even, to me, exuded a different type of confidence when he talked. Like, even if you, I don't know if you got to listen to the Twitter spaces after signing day. I mean, he sounded super confident in their chances. And so I get it. And with the AD thing, completely understand. So they kind of get a pass this year. It's all good. But next year, man, if there's two D2 schools on that schedule, man, there's no excuse for that. And you know that.
Because I know South Carolina normally be in that spot where that other D2 school at.
Yeah, they
So
screwed
they
them.
normally play South Carolina State every year.
Yeah, South Carolina State kind of ducked the smoke on that one. I'll be honest with you. I don't know. I don't know who they added onto the schedule to replace FAMU, but the fact that they were, because if I'm not mistaken, they still had one more game on the contract, or the whatever it was between those two. That's a little sad that South Carolina State didn't want to play them if that was the case. I need to hear I need to hear why.
And I think that's how that West Florida thing came about.
Well, no, they were always going to have one D2 on the schedule. Like that's been confirmed.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why it wound up being two.
Yeah. So I think the West Florida game was scheduled before the Lincoln game, if I'm not mistaken. But I could be wrong, or at least they announced it before the Lincoln game. So I think the West Florida game was always supposed to be on there because they wanted an in-state, D2 team, or I guess it could be Georgia, but I don't think the Lincoln game came about until after South Carolina State situation, and they probably panicked and it was a little late.
Because everybody pretty much had who they wanted to play done already.
Okay, so someone put in the chat that South Carolina State picked Virginia Lynchburg in the place of FAMU. That's brutal.
Wow.
And also, I will say, for everybody across the FCS, across the SWAC, MEAC, next year's scheduling is going to be so much easier because next year the FCS is allowed to play 12 games for the first time. And so
I've been wanting to ask you a question about that.
All right.
So, you know, with the playoffs, how would they do it since the playoffs normally fall on that date? Well, a lot of people we normally would play a 12 game.
I'm not exactly sure. They haven't
moving
announced anything.
Back or something?
They could. I don't see how they wouldn't have to, unless a lot of these 12th games are going to be played on week 0, which I don't know. I can't see it. It would be a lot, but if I heard correctly, Central Arkansas and UAPB are talking about moving their out of conference game this year to week 0, and you've seen more and more games played on week 0. I mean, I think it's more likely they make week 0 like the new week 1, and they don't move the playoffs. I think that would be the most thing, because if you think about it too, the SWAC would also have to move back if they don't move everything to week 0, because the Bayou Classic's not moving. The Turkey Day Classic is not moving. No. And so if the SWAC doesn't move everything to week 0, the whole SWAC championship schedule would be off. So I really do think what's going to happen is you're just going to start the season a week earlier, which is great. I love that. And with the Ivy League teams, they're not going to really probably participate in it because they don't even start playing until week 3 usually, because they don't play a full schedule like everyone else. So I don't know how it'll work for them, but they don't go to the playoffs. They don't do a postseason bowl game, a conference championship. So they just do their own thing out in the ether. But the SWAC and the rest of the FCS, I think they're just going to move the whole season forward 1 week.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to do this.
once they're able to play 12 games, which they should have been playing 12 games. I don't know why it was 11 in the first place.
I'm with you. That made no sense to me. Why would you not? If everyone else in college football can play 12 games, why would you not allow the FCS to play 12 games? Because it's more. I get that it probably costs more money because you have to upkeep the season one week longer, but it gives everyone an opportunity to play an extra game that if you set it up correctly, you can make more money. It doesn't make any
Yep.
sense on why they wouldn't do that. But you know how the NCAA is, Coach Green. I mean, we both do. A lot of people in the chat have been watching college football for a long time. If the NCAA is going to find a way to muck something up, they're going to do it. And I think that's one of the things that has been, I guess, in the process of needing to be changed and is finally changed.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see, Blue.
Hey, well, we'll see.
I
Coach
already know
Green.
you're gonna be on the lookout for it.
Oh yeah, you already know. I'll have all the info on all that stuff, and I'm sure they're probably still trying to figure it out because it's going to be a big change. Because also, too, I wonder, are teams going to use it? Because there's going to be a fight that first year. Because everything has to balance itself out over time. The first year something's established, it's chaos. Because you know how many teams who are trying to schedule home and homes are going to fight for that home game in 2024. They're going to want to be the first team on the home and home, and it's going to be like siblings fighting over the last, whatever. But it's going to be pure chaos week one or the year one of that. But I think over year 2, 3, 4, it'll kind of even itself out.
Yeah. And then then ain't some rumors still kind of on the horizon as far as like with the Power Five. We got a lot of stuff that's coming up since a new president about to be pretty much in soon.
There's still a lot of things that are probably tabled for right now. We'll see, man. Dr. Cavill's the guy for that because he's so plugged in with what's going on behind the scenes. But I don't think anything major will probably happen for 2023. Or you're probably looking into the future, into 2024, 2025, before we see any real fundamental changes. But I know some things, the transfer portal, NIL, just kind of restructuring it and putting some like guardrails on it are easily the first step that's going to happen. And then in terms of TV deals, conference structures, just the whole like the D2, FCS, Group of Five, Power Five, man, all the whole structure of college football is kind of teetering to a point. And so it'll be interesting to see if there's any restructuring on that. And I'm hoping there is because I really don't think at the lower tier Group of Five programs are hemorrhaging money and are much closer in talent wise to FCS. And some of these top FCS programs are a lot closer to talent wise FBS programs in terms of the Group of Five. So it'll be really interesting to see if all this restructuring really pays off, because I do think there's a lot of programs who jump to the FBS, who jump from D2 to FCS and hope that they can position themselves better for the ultimate restructuring that everyone thinks is going to happen. But what happens if the plan doesn't work? How many programs start hemorrhaging money at the FBS level and have to jump back down? There's so many questions that I have about the longevity of some team strategy. Like Kennesaw State probably has the student body to sustain FBS, but man, is Sam Houston and Jacksonville State really on the path to major success at the FBS level? Because I think they're closer to UMass than they are to James Madison in that aspect. So it'll be really interesting to see if it pays off where people place their chips and just trying to guess and where college football is going to be headed in the future.
Yeah. Man, how you like watching Aubrey Miller in person?
Oh man, it was fun. For me, covering FCS guys, because there's so few guys who get that opportunity, it's just cool to see those guys develop and get the attention that they deserve. Because for me, I've talked about Aubrey Miller, I've talked about Marte, I've talked about Cody Monk, I've talked about whoever you want to throw out there, but it's so cool to sit in the stands, sit in the press box, go to the media sessions, and hear people ooze about how impressed they were with Aubrey or how impressed they were with Isaiah or Cody or whoever. And it's like, man, I've been there. Like I understand that. I've really vouched for these guys. I've covered them. I've seen them develop. I've seen them play. And just to see some of the P5 coverage, the NFL coverage, and other guys really talk about what they've seen, man. It's a really cool experience, man. And I had a lot of fun this week.
Was you surprised he got the start?
No, because a lot of people don't know this. The American team was down a lot of linebackers. I think they only had 3 or 4 linebackers that were playing because Marte didn't play. D. Winters from TCU left early, and they had another linebacker opt out of the game. So they had like no linebackers on that team. So Aubrey was never going to come off the field, and Isaiah had to catch a lot of snaps. And that happens with all-star games because there's some guys who accept the invite to practice all week and leave. And there's other guys who practice all week, get hurt, or, have a little bit of a nicked up injury and don't want to play, or they just don't feel comfortable. And so you sometimes get that in terms of positions where you're really thin and the guys who stay have to play. Like the Fresno State kid, he won MVP because they only had 2 quarterbacks because all the other quarterbacks decided to leave. And so he got a lot of reps and he won MVP, and it really helped his draft stock. That's kind of like the underlying kind of thing that if you're not in person at the Senior Bowl, the Shrine Bowl, that you don't understand that there's some players that just dip out in the middle of the week.
Yeah, I was happy to see Lang and Miller take advantage of it, though.
It was great. Oh, I really do think this could be a huge year in terms of the draft for FCS and HBCU players. I really go ahead.
What you heard of what Dallas was doing?
I've heard a little bit. I heard he was killing people in route running. I mean, that's where he's going to make his money, short to intermediate. And man, his route running is elite. And I heard he was going right up there up against P5 corners and embarrassing them in one-on-ones. I'm still trying to get my hands on some more of the film for one-on-ones, and that's why I didn't want to cover the Shrine Bowl tonight. But I'm probably going to do a full recap of the Shrine Bowl performances and what I saw based on film and watching the game later this week when I do the other recruiting show later this week.
So it's most of the practices that help this draft stock too, right?
Yeah,
not necessarily the game, right?
Yeah, the game, a lot of the scouts don't even stay for the game because they'll just watch the film on that. The scouts want to see you in practice. They want to see one-on-ones. They want to see how you practice. They want to see your technique and some of the drills. They do interviews throughout the week after practice. That all means more than what happens in the game. So Monday through Thursday, I think they had some interviews on Friday too. All that means way more than the game. The game, at the end of the day, it'll be cool if you have a breakout performance and kind of get on some radars, but the practices make so much more impact on your draft stock.
I thought so. I thought, because I always felt like it may be, the way they talked about everything with the one-on-ones and everything they did in practice. I said, it looked like they lean heavy on what you're doing in practice than what you actually do in the game.
Yeah, because you got to think.
So I guess
the game's so like skeleton with it. Like it's so basic because you can't blitz, you can't run certain defensive formations, you can't do certain things offensively. The quarterbacks are very conservative because they don't want to throw picks, so they're not going to take chances and let the wide receiver show it off. The running backs all week, can't really be tackled. So it's just there's so many things in the game where people are not trying to get hurt and people are holding some things back because they don't want to make mistakes. That's why the game doesn't mean as much as practice, especially for wide receivers, corners, offensive linemen, defensive linemen. Like all the week of practice means so much more. The only position that the game might mean a little bit more is running back.
Yeah. So how are we looking like in the passing as far as covering people in the passing? How his coverage was?
It was good. I don't think he's ever going to be a lead at it. That's not his game. He's going to be a downhill guy. He's going to be great in run defense, but he can hold his own in pass coverage, and that's all you need. You don't need him to be perfect. You don't need him to turn into Isaiah Simmons or whatever coverage, or Devin White, whatever coverage corner you want to put out there. You just need him to do what he does well and not get exposed when he gets in those other positions. And he did a good job of not giving up a lot of huge plays. And he did pretty well in the one-on-ones, broke up a few passes. but I think there's like a ceiling with him. He can be really good, but if you get a running back like an Alvin Kamara, a Christian McCaffrey, or at the Senior Bowl, an Eric Gray, a Kenny McIntosh, that they could probably be 500, 600, 700-yard receiving backs. He's going to struggle, but a lot of linebackers are going to struggle. You don't want a linebacker covering Alvin Kamara, regardless of who it is.
Not at all.
And so
ain't too many that cover him.
exactly. So he has his weaknesses, but he holds his own, and I think he really improved his stock overall. And also, you saw my interview with him. You've probably seen a lot of people's interview with him. He's just so good behind the mic. He's so personable. He's such a great dude that I think he made a really big impression on a lot of scouts and other people this week.
That's good, man. Good.
So I got to ask you.
That's all I got, man.
I got to ask you before you go.
I'm gonna say this though. I'm gonna say this before.
Let me get...
I'm gonna do like I did with Coach Robinson. I'm gonna be a wait and see with Woody. I ain't gonna jump the gun yet.
That's a good call. I've been telling people wait and see. But before I let you go, Coach Green, I got one question for you. Are y'all going to start my boy Jalen this year at quarterback, or are y'all going to play politics?
Jalen, who?
The kid from Woodward that y'all landed on signing day.
I think he's gonna be Bottom, man.
Do you think his ceiling is really high? I mean, do you think he's a SWAC championship quarterback?
That's something we don't know yet.
Because I'm telling you, man,
we don't know yet until the bullets start flying.
Spring practice is going to be very telling. I'm so excited for that QB battle because you got a QB battle at UAPB, you got a QB battle at Jackson, Valley, Southern, Grambling, Alabama A&M.
Yeah.
So what's
down in the whole swag, huh?
Bethune-Cookman is going to have a QB battle as well. So that's 8 schools of the 12 because Andrew Body's going to start at Texas Southern. The kid at PV is going to stay at PV. I'm blanking on his name right now, though, even though he's a run first quarterback. He'll be the starting quarterback there. You'll have one at Alcorn. I know Aaron Allen's coming back, but man, I think Macon might give him a run for his money.
Yep. And what you think about the receivers from Jackson State going to Texas Southern? How you feel about that? Linking up with Andrew Body.
It's big because the biggest complaint for Texas Southern last year is they didn't have a wide receiver that could really get open off the line. Their wide receivers, if they didn't get touched, could find some room downfield, but man, they got jammed up at the line and they struggled to get off press coverage. You need some guys out there that can go create their own space and help Andrew Body, man. Because I mean, there were some times where he was going to make a good play. He was looking, nobody was open, and the offensive line gives out. I don't care how good of an offensive line you have, they cannot consistently keep you in the pocket for 5, 6, 7 seconds. Eventually, you're going to have to get rid of the football. And there was too many times where Andrew didn't have anywhere to go with the ball. He had to try to make plays with his legs, or the offensive line gave out and he had to get rid of the football. They had to go get some playmakers at wide receiver. And even though Quay really didn't work out at Jackson, we all know he has a high upside. And if he can just, I think he's going to be the feature guy for Texas Southern next year. And I'm really hoping he can finally reach that potential that Jackson fans were talking about, that we all know he has, because he has the talent. He just hasn't had it click on the field yet. So I'm really hoping a change in scenery, and then getting back into Texas could help.
And then plus JFU receiving core was real deep.
Yeah, it was tough to see the field. I mean, when you look at Dallas and then you had Travis taking time from people, I mean, it was just tough to get out there. I mean, the fact that Malachi Wadman didn't even play should show you how strong it is.
And what you think about Texas Southern new defensive coordinator that was the defensive coordinator at Grambling a while back?
I got to do some research on them. The next show, one of the topics, I'm going to be previewing the new QB coach at Alabama State, new D coordinator over there, like some of the hires in terms of positional coaches across the SWAC. I'm gonna be talking about them on the show later this week.
They got a new QB coach.
Yeah, they got they hired the head coach from Pike Road. He won a state title at Pike Road. Do you remember the kid, the running back for Ole Miss that won the Conley? Was it Judkins? He came from Pike Road. The dude ran a stupid offense at Pike Road, and he had multiple great quarterbacks there. He's been like a staple in Alabama, the Alabama State High School recruiting and everything like that. They went and got him, and he's working one on one with D Davis. Like, that's his guy. Like,
Smart
they
guy,
brought
Mr.
him
Coach
in.
Robinson, smart guy.
Yeah, you had to get somebody in there, and I mean, this guy's proven he already has a relationship with D, and I think it's a big move. But yeah, I'm gonna talk a little bit more about what he can bring to that offense on Wednesday.
Okay. Yeah, that's gonna be interesting right there.
Man, you ain't lying. But Ghost Green,
I'm looking
appreciate you
forward to that
calling in,
show.
man. Closing down the show. Definitely appreciate that, man.
Oh, no problem.
All right, guys. Closing down the call lines, man. I was supposed to be a short show, and here we are at 2 hours. Listen, man, I had a great time in Mobile, and definitely hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Listen, Senior Bowl film, interview, highlights, everything available on the channel. It's in the Senior Bowl playlist, so make sure to go check that out. Stay tuned. Live stream Wednesday night. Be talking new SWAC coaching hires, talking a little bit more about recruiting, talking about the Shrine Bowl, all that good stuff. Also, interview with Alabama State defensive back Adrian Maddox coming this week. I think I'm going to drop that on Wednesday, and then tomorrow. We're playing. I'm going to drop it tomorrow afternoon. I'm talking with new running back coach and recruiting coordinator from Mississippi Valley State, Coach Wyatt Anderson. Valley quietly put together a really solid class. They ate on the JUCO circuit. So I wanted to get Coach Anderson on the show to really talk about what him, Kendrick Wade, and that new coaching staff at Valley is putting together. So that interview will probably be dropping tomorrow. And I also got an interview set up with Isaiah Bolden, Jackson State kick returner, cornerback. We're going to talk a little bit about his pre-draft process and what he can bring to the next level. Interview with Amar Johnson, South Dakota State running back, already out. It's way down below the Senior Bowl content, man. He had an interview the day before the Senior Bowl started. Make sure to check out all that content. Head to our website, thebluebloodscfb.com, for pictures and other coverage of the Senior Bowl and some other recruiting that's going to be coming later this week. But guys, until next time, man, the Blue Bloods are out.